Welcome to my porch. My name is Pete. I've got opinions. Alright, without throwing too much personality on this, I wanted to make a video about this. I talk to people about it a lot, and often they tell me that I should do a podcast. I have a lot of opinions. Now, this wasn't what the channel was going to be originally, but it kind of is, because I'm interested in a lot of different things, and I want to discuss it with people out there. And I wasn't really looking to grow the channel so much as I wanted to leave kind of an archive of ideas and things. Got into firearms a few years back. I kind of really enjoy it, but unfortunately there are limitations that are being put on me everywhere I go. I left New York, I moved to Virginia, and found it easier here for a while. You have to pardon my coffee and cigar noises. But, we have new governance now. They're trying to put limitations on our firearms. They want to take them eventually, we all know that. And what I wanted to do is discuss a different angle that people don't talk about when they talk about firearms. Often they concern themselves with disarming us, which of course is a big part of it. But there's something else they don't talk about. You'll find, and I'm not a partisan, but this is factually what a particular political party does, the Democratic Party, as they call themselves, which I find is interesting too, because you have a lot of people, a lot of different factions within that party that are even a minority to some of the moderate perspectives of people who consider themselves affiliated with that party. So I don't know why they call it Democratic when they don't really have a majority consensus on a lot of the things they do, such as immigration, where we do not want people unlawfully in this nation. We want them removed. But I'm going to make another video about that. It's kind of really important. I probably should do that one first. However, the firearm regulation thing is affecting me directly now, and I wanted to put this out. Now, regulating firearms or eliminating firearms is not necessarily about disarming you directly, but it is about economic subjugation. You see, if you killed off the firearm industry right now, millions of people would be out of work. Probably tens of millions, to be honest. I don't have an exact number, and I don't have figures to back up everything, but as you know, every industry supports other industries. To make it as easy as I can for the layman's, the automobile industry supports the tire industry, if that helps. They also support the electronics industry, rubber industry, people who provide different metals and forms, things of that nature, and firearms are no different. If firearms went away tomorrow, it would hurt people who produce packaging. Firearms come in boxes. And no, I don't think Palmetto State Armory makes this box. They probably buy the cardboard box from someplace else, who also probably buys the ink to put on the box from someplace else. You see where I'm going now? Similarly, the countless accessories we put on our firearms, such as lights and lasers and red dots or green dots. The manufacturer of the magazines is not always the same manufacturer as the firearm. Same goes for ammunition. Even the ammunition makers don't necessarily make the casings for the ammunition, or the primers or otherwise. All of these things come from different places. The industry supports leather workers, leather companies, the people who provide the actual leather, the skins that are leathered. And as you see, they have hybrid products. They use polymers, just like the firearms. They support the industries that make, distribute, and of course transport all of these items. Because all of these items, not only are they manufactured by different people in different places and provide jobs in many regions of even the United States by itself, but they also require transportation. So those are delivery jobs too, whether it be larger trucking companies or rural local routes. Look at that. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, that we're delivering some of these items to people. I mean, the leather or the manufacturer of this holster probably even buys that stitching from somebody else. Just saying. The paddle's probably molded and manufactured by someone somewhere else, and even this little pad they put in there, they may even get that from somewhere else as well. So you're talking like tens of millions of mostly middle income earning employment. Then you knock it down to the retail level, and there's a lot of privately owned stores. So it really is about taking prosperity away from citizens. And it always has been. I'm not going to get into dates, details, and everything else like that. We could do that if you make the request. I'll do it. It will require a lot of time to put together a bibliography to go through everything that I've observed over my lifetime. But there is, specifically, the Democratic Party has always sought to economically subjugate people. It goes as far back as the slavery argument they had, where, of course, they're the ones that turned it into a racial component in order to justify keeping people as slaves. Slavery wasn't always racially motivated or otherwise, but they tried to adjust it to that so they could depict people as an other, or foreign, or make people uncomfortable with someone who looks different or otherwise. But they find ways to get into your psyche to make things work in their favor. But at the same time that they're keeping people slaves, they're kind of disadvantaging people that should be employed, or they could be paying, in other words, recirculating their wealth back to the rest of society through employment, which is very interesting, because as we know, the new title is what the Democratic Socialist Party. So now we get down to what socialism is. And for me, socialism has always seemed to be a remarketing of serfdom. My understanding of serfdom is it is a labor society for a hierarchy, and that's always what socialism ends up being in the end anyway. It's even in the language that they use to sell it. They want equal equity for the labor class or the working class, right? But then they follow it up with things like, you don't own your home. The property belongs to the state. So equal equity means no equity for the working class, and you are just to work for some other greater governance to determine what your dividends are going to be. I have issues with this. I take umbrage to the whole socialism idea. I think it's for the stupid, for people who believe that there's some sort of, they're going to get a handout or things are going to be free, but all they're really doing is enslaving everybody. I even find the welfare system to be very much like slavery, except not the way people think it is. I always think that the poor, disadvantaged person is the one being made a slave. But in fact, in the welfare system, when you think about what slavery is, it's forcefully compelling somebody to labor for the wealth of somebody else. So people who are paying taxes into the system, or which are mostly middle-class people, right? Well, no, isn't it like the higher percentage of the system is actually paid by the lowest percentage of higher earners? But in any event, but the point is that everybody who's paying into that system, who's actually working for that money, and it's going to people who are not earning, it's earners paying for people who aren't earning. Making just about everybody who's paying into the system a slave to people who are just not working. I think that's one of the reasons why there's such a disparaging look on folks who are like, second, third generation collecting welfare as well. I understand if you're down and you need it for a little while. I get that. It's nice to have that little safety net, but to treat it like a lifestyle and to raise, the next generation. Oh no, fuck. Damn it, how far did I go? What I do? I just paused myself. I'm going to have to go back and edit that, I guess. Or maybe not. I don't know. I looked up and I thought it had stopped recording. All right, so this is going to be a flub. There's going to be a lot of flubs because I don't edit. You guys know that already. Anyone who watched this channel before knows I don't edit. I do everything on the fly. Like right now, I just went out for a cigar. It's cold tonight. It's a little windy. I'm sure the audio is terrible. But I wanted to put something. I haven't put anything out in a while. And I do appreciate the subscribers that are there. I'm certain you're all doing it for the same reason I do. I try to subscribe to the little guy who just does a little tabletop or has a backyard range or whatever else like that. When it comes to like the gun channels or even people giving out a fair opinion on things, I prefer to support the little guy, so to speak. I support the big guy too. But the point is like, all right, so what I was getting at with socialism anyway, is in the modern era, we're living in a time, and if you're in the United States, you're living in a place where there are more ways to market your abilities or find a market to improve your prosperity than there ever has been before throughout probably all of human history. And now's not the time to surrender that to some greater governance to determine what your dividend should be. I really feel strongly about that. I probably should have said that at the beginning because by this point, most people already clicked off of this. But that's essentially what my problem is. Aside from, I think, gun control is really ridiculous because not only are they economically going to just crush us, essentially, but in the meantime, there are people, not me, I don't have that much money, but I do have quite a few $1,000s in firearms, which are going to have to be moved to another state. I may not move, but I may give them to, I have family members in free states that I could store them there and just use them when I go there. It's not that big a deal. But, I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's a compromise I shouldn't have to make. But there are people that have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth invested into these products. You know, there are people that, they're hobbies for a lot of people. You think about cowboy shooters and stuff, and then like the custom guns and the money they spent on gunsmiths and everything else, especially for the persons who don't do it themselves. For many people, these are family heirlooms. So this is literally a government telling you that you cannot determine what you want to leave to your family. I can't think of anything more oppressive, to be honest with you. And I do find even socialism is even a little bit more oppressive than some forms of serfdom. I mean, in some serfdom societies, people were allowed to own property, and often they were permitted to even, leave that behind to be inherited by other people. Now, but we're talking about a movement that is just taking things away from other people. And you could say, hey, you're taking my guns, but your guns are your property. You own them. Everything you own is your property. And I wish more people would take a stand on this because it is a slippery slope. You can't just surrender it. It doesn't actually make anybody safer. It never has. And I can't help noticing that, there's always like more mass shootings pop up just around the time they start trying to pass this kind of legislation also. Like they want the shock and awe value. I mean, what are these people, hypnotized? They know exactly when to do it? I don't know. Are they sacrifices for the cult? I don't know. It's fun and sad to think these things. It's also very possible when you think about the mental stability of somebody who's willing to go out and perform something as heinous as a mass shooting, right? And what their motivations are. It's just absurd as well. So, my thing is, I talk too much about things I'm not allowed to say at work. Now, if you stayed this long, and it is long, I know it's like a 15-minute video almost, and you're okay with it, I don't know, if I get like, since nobody puts likes on my videos anyway, if it gives me an easy out. If I get 50 likes on this video, I will do more content explaining a little bit more my world perspective. And it is probably considered somewhat conservative by modern standards. I do believe in smaller governance and on the larger centralized scale. I think communities should take care of themselves. I think when we have strong communities and a more fundamental order at the higher level, that doesn't, encroach on their freedoms. I just think it works better. It always has. I mean, I'm a little over half a century old. I've seen the world shift. I'm fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to have seen things change quite a bit in the United States in that amount of time. I have silly arguments with people about, like, which political party has safer states, which I think is really funny because most crime takes place in urban areas, and most urban areas are controlled by Democrats. So I always give them the example of, like, when I lived in New York. New York City was literally like the third most dangerous city in the country until a Republican mayor ran it for a while, and when he was in there, it became like the third safest, like literally flipped. And then since then, Democrats took over, and it has been in just a decline ever since. And to me, that was a real-time event that I lived through that I just found undeniable. And the problem is a lot of young people that are coming out of these, like, education institutions, they're learning perspectives from people who, well, largely just haven't really left school. When I think about these ideas that come out of these universities, they're first of all, they're told which ideas to study. They're not out there, like, expanding their knowledge into books that argue the points that they want them to learn, which to me is kind of the antithesis of what university was intended for. I thought the idea of university was to, examine, ideas and wisdom that's been collected over the years and challenge them to come up with new ideas. But they don't. What they really do is they indoctrinate people into adopting the ideas that best suit whatever they've already chosen for them. And it hasn't gone well for the United States as a result. And actually, if you look at it on a global scale, it hasn't gone real well for the rest of the world either, because the world is kind of in sort of a, it's gone kind of crazy lately, right? And I try not to point out ethnic groups or whatever, but there's obviously a massive Islamic takeover of most of the world right now, and what they're not taking a lot of the criminal cartels are, or maybe they're working together, I'm not really sure. That's another concern I'll discuss in another video. The mass immigration that took place, mostly under the Biden administration that just left. I tell people all the time, the problem with that is when you have tens of millions of foreign invaders in the nation that you cannot identify and you don't know why they're here, why they felt the need to sneak in and not come to the door, it puts us in a position where we really can't even have our own revolution, because the first sign of instability, and those people will just seize territory where they are. And when you're outnumbered by countless enemies that you cannot identify, it is an unwinnable situation. So if we let it get to that, we're not going to get the nation back. You're going to have to, pick your votes pretty well. And I would like to encourage anybody listening to this that is of similar thought processes, or at least a reasonable, honorable person, by all means get involved with the government, because we need new people in there. With all respect to the efforts of Trump, which to me, a lot of it is too little too late, because I think people should have been arrested from the Biden administration just on the grounds that enabling an invasion from foreign nationals is treason. I will even argue that is the highest form of treason. However, that's not why I was making this. Now that I'm 20 minutes in almost, I was making this just to explain that firearm control is about economic control. And I don't want us to become slaves. And I don't want them to take away your property. So get involved. Organize protests, whatever else. I would do more, but I'm kind of poor and I have to work all the time. Have a good night.